Perhaps at some point in the past, you remember taking exams that evaluate and measure your self-esteem and personality. As kids, we were constantly reminded by teachers and parents that having high self-esteem was very important. They said that we must appreciate and consider ourselves special. They only said that, but we were never taught what that meant. The word self-esteem has been defined, misused, and modified by many people. But I believe the best way to look at it is by calling it self-worth. Many will define self-esteem as self-admiration. Others will say that having high self-esteem gives you the satisfaction over the basis of nothing. However you put this term, it all comes back to one single factor: you. Self-worth implicates how you treat yourself, how you cherish yourself in a healthy way, and how you contribute to making the world a better place. Of course, by discussing the concept of self-worth, we also must define what self-esteem implies. It is undoubtedly influenced by your self-worth, however, they are not the same. But what's the difference? Self-esteem is primarily built upon sources outside of yourself that you don't actually control. How you feel about yourself is heavily influenced by how you think you're faring compared to others. In other words, your self-esteem is derived from what you think others think of you based on your results and actions. On the other hand, self-worth is an inner state that comes from self-understanding, self-love, and self-acceptance. It holds power to transform our lives for the better. This state is timeless and unchanging because it's a direct measure of how we value and regard ourselves, despite what others may say or do. This isn't therefore something fickle that changes easily due to external factors or circumstances. To have high level of self-worth means accepting yourself wholeheartedly, at all times despite your flaws, weaknesses, and limitations. It's about recognizing the real value of who you are, right here, right now, at this present moment. Having high level of self-worth is crucial, but how do we accomplish such thing? I presume we can talk about 5 different steps to do just that. Step number 1. Understand yourself. How you perceive yourself, how you talk about yourself, and how you represent yourself eventually become the reality for you. Nevertheless, if you exaggerate your talents and skills, you will come across as arrogant and egotistical. This is not about overvaluing your self-worth, but about making yourself see through the insecurities, recognize that you are a valuable person and that your talents and thoughts are unique and worthy. Step 2. Overcome the fear to self-love. Self-love is often on a scale with narcissism and egotism. This is partly because people often misunderstand the definition of love and what it actually implies. Healthy self-love is all about being your own best friend. It's not about praising yourself all the time and all day long and permanently announcing how great you are. Rather, self-love is about treating yourself with the same care, tolerance, and generosity and compassion as you would treat a special friend. Step 3. Trust your gut feeling. Self-worth requires you to listen and rely on your own feelings, not automatically respond to the feelings of others. When you learn to do this, you will learn how to better follow your heart's desires. Why is this important? Because self-worth plummets when we let others make decisions for us. At first, this may seem like the easy route and free of hard choices. Whereas, we grow when we make our own decisions and we evolve when we face every outcome we receive. Step 4. Rebuild yourself. Discover what your real talents are and write them down. Talents are innate abilities that differ from skills which have to be worked on to perfect them. Focus on discovering and perfecting your strengths and stop thinking too much about your weaknesses. You've probably done that long enough already. Give yourself a break from negativity and start thinking in what aspects of your life you can make the most of your strengths. Step 5. Self-denial. We have come to the last step. Now is when it means serious business. In this step, We get to face reality and gather courage to change the things we can and the strength to accept the things we cannot change. Here we take full responsibility for our lives, for our circumstances, and for our problems. And I don't mean we'll play the victim game. Rather, we must acknowledge that yes, of course, we have problems, we are flawed, circumstances happened, and mistakes were made. We've failed miserably, and there are things that we are not proud of. Forgive yourself and forgive others for everything that occurred in the past. Learn to love yourself unconditionally, without any judgment or excuses. This is you, and you're being vulnerable, authentic, and real. Embrace who you are fully and wholeheartedly. Embrace the fact that you will no longer allow outside forces to define you. Only in this way, you will finally let go of everything that's been holding you back all these years. There is no more complaining, blaming, judgment, or excuses. You fully trust yourself and your abilities to forge and mold your destiny. You may now find yourself walking a lonely path towards your self-discovery, but hold strong. If others become distant, perhaps it's for the best. We must let go of toxic people in order to move forward. You won't walk alone forever. With your new power, you will become phenomenal and you will attract phenomenal.